Welcome back to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson. I've asked Bernard Rowe, the Managing Director of ioneer, ASX code is INR, to join us today because big news out of the company this week, which is that they've signed a binding offtake agreement. Now, I'm not going to steal his thunder, but for those of you that don't know, ioneer have the lithium-boron project over there in Nevada. It's the Rhyolite Ridge project. Lithium and boron, one of only two known deposits in the world, and they are getting some very exciting news coming out. So sit up, take some notice. Bernard, great to see you. Welcome back to Small Caps.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Great to see you too. It's been a little while.
It has been a little while. 4 months ago, I was chatting to you and there wasn't this talk about what was going on. Talk to us. Tell our viewers why this news is so important for the company, what it is, and the arrangements with this binding offtake agreement.
Yeah, sure, Kerry, happy to. So what we've announced is a full binding bankable offtake. So it's a full form agreement with Ford Motor Company. And importantly for both ioneer and equally for Ford, this is actually about the full supply chain development in the United States, end to end. So, ioneer will be producing lithium carbonate from its Rhyolite Ridge operation in Nevada. And over time, as the supply chain develops in the United States, which is happening now, this material will be refined, incorporated into cathodes in the United States, into cells in the United States, into American-made electric vehicles. So full end-to-end supply chain development. And this is really an important first step towards that. I think there's been quite a lot of effort put into recognition and stimulation of the demand end for electric vehicles, nowhere near the amount of attention at the other end of the critical materials that are needed to make that happen. So very little stimulation, incentive, or even progress, you could say, in developing the industry that really needs to supply the critical materials. And today's announcement is a fantastic first step in that direction.
Tell us about how much of your project, in other words, the offtake, what percentage of the project will that take up?
Okay, so the Ford announcement is for 7,000 tonnes, which is roughly 1/3 of our production. So 7,000 tonnes per year. We're going to be producing somewhere around 22,000 tonnes. So it's about a third. Now, about 12 months ago, we did a similar offtake agreement with EcoPro Innovation, who are one of the largest cathode makers in the world. They're a Korean company. They actually supply to Ford, amongst others, including other car manufacturers in the United States. So you put those two together, we've basically got 2/3 of our lithium offtake under these binding, bankable, full-form documents. So, really, really positive for ioneer to be in that position. And there's more to come. But
I was going to say, I think you said recently that there were two coming. I mean, we know about the EcoPro. Are you able to talk to us? Because it sounds to me like 2/3 is taken up. There's 1/3 to go. Is that ready to go?
Yes, it's at a very similar stage. So final stages of documentation. So we'll be talking about that very soon, I would imagine. It's a similar sort of deal, if you like, in that, just like we've stipulated that the lithium at Rhyolite Ridge must stay in the US as that supply chain develops. It absolutely must be used in American-made electric vehicles. That's what we've stipulated under the Ford agreement, and that's what you're going to see in the agreement to follow as well. Sorry, Kerry, but ioneer and the ioneer board is absolutely committed to be an instrumental supplier of this material for specifically and exclusively for the US EV supply chain and obviously everything that comes with that.
There's a lot of lithium companies out there. Why is Rhyolite Ridge such a good deposit? Because I know in the past you've said to me, Kerry, there's nothing quite like what we've got here in Nevada.
Yeah, very good question. And there isn't anything like it. You did mention that there are two big lithium-boron deposits in the world, and that's a fact. So this is a really rare deposit. What makes this so different and so special? A couple of things. One is it's in the fantastic state of Nevada in the US, second largest car market in the world. mining jurisdiction. So that makes a huge difference. You know, strategic supply, security of supply chain, all those sort of issues are all addressed when you start talking about having a project like this in Nevada. It is a very large deposit. So, you know, our feasibility study demonstrated 26 years of production at the rates that I talked about. But, you know, that's only a small fraction of the total deposit. So, you know, this could easily be 2 or 3 times that in terms of mine life, or it could be scaled up to produce at a much higher rate. So that also makes it, and that's been drilled. You know, we have 146 million tonnes of resource. There's only 60 million tonnes of that 146 that's currently incorporated into the mine plan. So plenty of ability to scale this up. So it is truly a world-class type of deposit under any measure. And then finally, I would say the boron. The boron makes this deposit what it is. It's why this white hill behind me here sticks out of the ground. We're not going to mine that. That's one of our preservation areas for the team's buckwheat. But nevertheless, that's the reason why this deposit is so special, because it has a lot of boron that dictates how we process it. It makes this material very, very readily leachable and being able to be processed, and the end products made at site. So we're not shipping a concentrate anywhere, no intermediate products. We're making lithium carbonate at Rhyolite Ridge. And finally, that the economic contribution from the boric acid, it's over $100 million a year for the 26 years. So that 100 million plus covers about 70% of our costs. So the boric acid is essentially paying for the 3/4 of the operating costs of this, or will pay for 3/4 of the operating costs of this operation. So that also means that it's a rarity that it's going to be right at the very bottom of the lithium cost curve, courtesy of all that boric acid. And there's a big market for boric acid, and it's a very strategic material, just like lithium has been shown to be.
And as you said earlier, it's one of only 2 in the world. Talk to us about timing. You've made this announcement with Ford today, this binding offtake agreement. Does that mean that you can speed the process up? Talk to us about what the news flow is going to be off the back of this.
So firstly, you know, on news flow, then you're going to see another offtake agreement from us, as I said, similar to what we've just done in the very near future. We are continuing our work with the Department of Energy Loan Programs Office for debt funding on this project. We've mentioned that before. We're in detailed due diligence with the Department of Energy. That process should wrap up reasonably soon. So that's something you're going to see news from, hopefully positive, but, you know, we're still in the due diligence phase, so there's still a bit of work to be done there. We have been continuing to work on engineering so that we'll be construction ready. We'll probably, you know, if we had the green light, theoretically, we could probably commence construction here within the next 3 or 4 months. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen because there's still some permitting to do. We've got 2 out of the 3 key permits, so our air quality and water pollution control permits have both been issued and are valid. The 3rd permit is the plan of operation, which is the federal government's permitting system that this deposit lies on public land. So we require a permit under the Bureau of Land Management, the Administrator of Public Lands. And that process, we did have to make a change to our mine plan to further avoid the buckwheat, which we have done. We've submitted that, and government's processing that as we speak. And so we're expecting that in the sort of around the middle of next year, that is when we're sort of planning to have that permitting completed so that we could be commencing construction in the back half of 2023, which would mean first production in back half of 2025. That's the sort of time frame we're talking here. It's a 2-year build. It's a big project, big processing plant that needs to be built. It will take us a couple of years to do that. So, all those things are moving forward. You know, we're going to be doing some more exploration work. I mentioned we've got this very large resource that's just the lithium and boron material. We've also got other types of lithium-bearing ore or mineralisation at Rhyolite Ridge. We're going to be looking at that as well as we move forward. So plenty of news flow to come as we sort of move into this last final phase of permitting and engineering design.
Talk about how the funding side of it. What's the sort of capex that you're looking at, and the funding side? Are you down the road with that?
Yeah, very, very much so. So, our DFS, which was now, so bankable feasibility study, was completed over 2 years ago. We had a capex estimate of just under $800 million. Obviously, capital capex on all projects has risen. We don't have a number yet to provide on that, but we are working on that. What helps when you're doing accurate capital estimates is having a high level of engineering completion, and that's exactly what we have. I think even at DFS level, we were 30% engineering complete. We're above 50% now. That allows you to do a much, much more accurate capital estimate and operating cost estimates as well. So, we will be updating that as we move towards FID, but it's around that sort of level based on the feasibility study. In terms of how do we fund $800 million project, then we have Sibanye in there under a joint venture agreement that doesn't get triggered until FID, so it's not going to happen until next year. But Sibanye, under that agreement, will contribute $490 million US to the capital, and the rest of it we're expecting to put in place with debt. And the centrepiece we are hoping of that debt is going to be the Department of Energy, because that's long life, low cost money that you won't be able to get those sorts of terms with any other lenders. ioneer itself, I think we've at the end of the last quarter we had about $130 or $40 million March quarter in the bank, and so we're well funded from our position through until that FID decision, and then the equity from Sibanye and the debt kick in during construction.
Any challenges coming up for you? Or are you feeling very, very confident now that you've got these 2 offtake agreements? There's a third one in the pipeline. Any challenges ahead, or are you sitting there going, guys, this project is ready to rock and roll and investors better sit up and take notice?
Yeah, I think the latter. We're feeling really good about everything. We've done a lot of hard work over the last few years, and we're seeing the rewards of that work. I think it's no mistake that Ford has chosen to partner with us for supply of lithium in the United States. We're very, very advanced compared to any of the other projects that are out there. We've invested in excess of $100 million on this project in the last 6 years. All those environmental studies, baselines that were completed now several years ago, the buckwheat was the only sensitive issue that was needed to be further addressed, and we did that. We came up with a new mine plan that totally avoids the buckwheat, and we're seeing a good response from the federal agencies in relation to the work and the commitment that we've made for the conservation of the buckwheat, which goes way beyond just avoiding it. We're going to avoid it, no direct impacts, but we're also growing seedlings, we're building greenhouses, we're going to actually essentially underwrite the conservation of this plant, and it's not going to be disrupted by the mine in any way with no direct impact. So that was the hurdle that we had to get over, which we've done, and we see a very bright future. And we see ourselves as being a significant, very significant and early supplier of critical materials into the US domestic supply chain, which the US government, the US OEMs desperately want to happen.
Absolutely. In terms of sort of this low cost, but also I guess the ESG component of it, and it's a sort of a green lithium, if you like. How are you addressing that? Because I think that's important for people as well these days.
Yeah, it actually is. So, we are already a member of Towards Sustainable Mining. We're doing that process. So we're putting sort of the action words rather into action on that. Things that we're particularly focused on, in a desert, water usage. So we put a lot of effort into our engineering design to make sure we maximise the amount of water recycling and minimise the amount of water use. we use, and I like to express it this way, that the only real use of water, apart from domestic water usage in this area, is for growing alfalfa irrigation, and it's for growing alfalfa or lucerne hay. And we use the equivalent of about 6 or 7 of these centre pivots. So 6 or 7 paddocks of hay growing in this area is the equivalent what Rhyolite Ridge will use to produce enough lithium for 400,000 electric vehicles a year, plus the boric acid.
Wow.
So it's incredibly water efficient. We're not connected to the grid. We don't have any gas pipelines here. It's purely self-sufficient in its energy requirements, and that's because producing sulfuric acid from sulfur, which we use to leach, generates a huge amount of energy, steam and electricity through steam turbines. So we're self-sufficient, zero CO2 power to drive this entire operation, apart from some backup generators and startup motors and things like that. But otherwise, it's and the footprint. We're keeping the footprint to a bare minimum. It's a big deposit, but we've done a lot of work to minimise that footprint. We've got backfill strategies for the overburden into the pit. So we're mining and we're backfilling, and we will be backfilling as we go to ensure that reclamation is happening at the same time as the mine is advancing. And so all of these things are part of the concerted effort around ESG. I haven't spoken about it, but we have regular community meetings. We're engaged with the tribal nations. We've had hosted site visits for both those groups, regular site visits. We've listened to concerns. We've tried to address those concerns. So right across the full gamut of ESG, we're working hard on that, and we're measuring this through this towards sustainable mining program.
Just finally, before I do a little bit of a wrap up with you and with my 3 reasons why people should sit up and take notice, you know the drill. Ford, as a partner with this binding offtake agreement, are they a good person to work with to get that offtake agreement done? Was it a lot of toing and froing, or are Ford pretty good when it comes to dealing with this?
Oh, no, they were very good to deal with. And I would say all the parties that, we've been dealing with in this area have been exceptionally good to deal with. I think there's a strong recognition that, my point earlier, there's been a lot of stimulation, a lot of incentivisation around the demand side of EVs. There hasn't been anywhere near the amount of attention paid at the other end of the supply chain. And I think, Ford is obviously very much aware of that. And we've seen now Ford doing offtakes, full binding offtakes with a number of companies on lithium, including here in Australia for spodumene. So they're recognising that, and when you're dealing with someone who recognises the issue and you're working towards solving that issue, then it makes for good negotiation. Absolutely. So no, very pleased with being able to strike the deal with Ford.
Well, Bernard, I've got to say, congratulations, because I remember when we first spoke and, it was just getting started, getting bigger, the project's underway, but really very systematic in the exploration, getting the project underway, and I guess putting such a strong foundation so that now it's like we can see the end of the runway. We can see that you've done all the systematic, as I say, the foundation to grow this and turn it into a mine. So congratulations. Let's wrap up with 3 reasons why our beautiful community out there should be sitting up and taking notice of ioneer, as if they don't have enough reasons yet. But let's wrap it up with the 3 reasons.
Okay, so I think you're going to see ioneer continue to be highlighted as the most important lithium supplier into the domestic US supply chain. And I think that's an incredibly strong point to make around the importance of ioneer in that supply chain. So that's a reason through these offtake agreements, through other partnerships, that you're going to see this focus on the US supply chain differentiates us. The fact that we're in the United States and it's the world's 2nd largest motor vehicle fleet, and you're going to see us becoming more and more an important player in that whole thing and that whole supply chain. You're going to see us continue to work towards the solution on the debt and equity funding. We've got the equity partner from Sibanye, and you're going to see us move towards the full permitting of the project and being a major producer into that US EV supply chain.
And for all of those people out there that were worried about the buckwheat, that not only have they got it covered, but they've gone over and above. They are now going to be the buckwheat kings out there in the desert. Well done, Bernard. Bernard Rowe, Managing Director of ioneer, ASX code, ladies and gentlemen, INR. Not investment advice. Go check them out. Well done, Bernard. We'll see you next time on Small Caps.
Great. Thank you very much, Kerry. Bye for now.